Hello and welcome. We have just released hawkular Services version 0.32 with a lot of improvements and also in the previous versions. So there are improvements in the agent side, and then there is the big subject of containerization. And I want to show you a bit what we have been working on in the last couple of weeks and months. And let me start with the first thing. These are official Docker images. So now we have here on Docker Hub for hawkular services, we have images. You see the 0.32 image from the release, which is also latest. So latest is always pointing to the latest released version. And then for individual runs of our CI for hawkular services, we also will push Devil images. So if you want to be on the bleeding edge, Devil is certainly the best for you. And before I continue here with some other things, let me switch over to this one. This is a pull request from Jirka about templates to run hawkular services in OpenShift. This was already possible in the past, but there were always some issues. And we have made some fixes and also added this template. So let me go here, copy the URL, and then in a terminal window, let me create a new project called hawkular. And we can go to here, Firefox. You see the project. And what I'm going to do is take the template that I've just shown, this ephemeral template, and install that into OpenShift, into our hawkular project. And now we can go here on click Add to Project, and then go to the catalog, Technologies, and in the Uncategorized section you will find hawkular services. I select that. And now here we can, there are some defaults, but there are some parameters that we can change. And I'll take the 0.32 release and leave the others as is and go on create. Now when I go back to hawkular, to the overview screen, you see that the hawkular services is going to be deployed. It's deploying the Cassandra data store and also the hawkular services pod itself. And while this is running, I leave that takes a while. I'm gonna show you a few other things here. And the first one is, I've just mentioned these hawkular services images, and I'm running that locally in a Docker Compose image. So here you have hawkular services latest. It's running with a link to a Cassandra. There is an old version of the Hawkfly container. And I will just add another Hawkfly. Hawkfly is my personal version of a Wildfly server enhanced with the EAP agent or the Wildfly agent from hawkular, so that it can talk to hawkular servers and monitor its state. And here I have a docker run command, and for the link I'll tell it that the hostname hawkular internally will be provided by this container, which is my hawkular services server, and I want to run Pilhon Hawkfly latest, so let's do that. And when you look at the startup here, you see that it's coming back in a second. I'm passing flags. These are encoded inside the Docker image, that the agent machine ID is set to the container ID. We'll see that in a second. Same for the server name. And then we set a flag that this is running inside a container that can be used by clients to do, let's say, cross-linking within ManageIQ, for example. And then there is also another flag that says that this server is immutable, which means when you run an operation, it will fail, or a modifying operation. Similar, if you want to update things, configuration items, they will also fail because containers are supposed to be immutable by default, and if you want to make a change, you should create different container images with your settings. Similar lifecycle operations like start and stop don't make sense because containers usually are orchestrated by an orchestration system like OpenShift or Docker Compose or others. So when the agent is starting over here, it's starting, and then it will tell you here agent has been configured as being immutable, and it will give you the talk where it talks to, and a feed ID has been registered under the tenant hawkular, and the machine ID was to the, also set here. And now I can take my hawkular hawkfx tool. I need to make that a bit bigger, go on reload feeds, and now you see this new feed 828 DC. This is here, this one. And if you go onto the operating system and show the properties, you will see that the machine ID has been set to this 828 DC value, which is the feed ID and container ID. Well, I haven't shown you the container ID yet, but I can do that in a second. Well, Docker PS, and then here you see container ID is 828 DC. So that's that. And then you have also seen the other flags, and currently you will see them as properties on the agent resource in 032, so the immutable flag and in container. And I'm proposing a change here for the next agent release that are also shown directly on the server. My local build already includes that change, so that is not yet in the current code. That is a proposed change. Here is immutable and in container. That should make it easier for people that like, or clients like ManagerIQ, to just read that value, because they read these properties anyway and then act upon it. And then, as you have just seen, it's an immutable server. So when I go on reload operation, run the operation, it will here tell me error callback was called. Reason could not perform reload. Operation not allowed because the agent is immutable. So that's what we have just set. So this operation is, this immutable flag is now working. And okay, so that's running. And then there's another one that I want to show you, and this is running hawkular with IPv6. This is nothing we are really working on explicitly. It's rather that it just works if you know a few tricks. And the first one is for Cassandra. If you go to the Cassandra distribution, there is an environment file. And if you look for IPv6, you find this one, prefer binding to IPv4 network. And you have to comment out this line so that Cassandra is allowed to run also with IPv6. And then in the Cassandra YAML file, well, here listen address is now bound to IPv6 localhost, and I'm also saying here prefer IPv6, and then further down you also need to send the RPC address to the same one. Basically it's the same as with IPv4 with setting the addresses, except that this is now an IPv6 address. So I can start Cassandra now. Cassandra -F, so it stays in the foreground, which is just fine here. Should tell us that it has bound to right here node 0001. That's the IPv6 localhost state jump to normal. So we're good. and start listening for clients also on localhost IPv6 localhost 9042. That's good. So let's go over to the hawkular services, and here when I standalone.conf, if you don't set Java opts, then externally, then this block will kick in, and usually this also has an IPv6 and a prefer IPv6 setting that needs to be removed, and I've done that, so I can now start the server. -b snerd6 also points here to my local IPv6 address. I've set the Cassandra nodes address. So I've set the Cassandra nodes environment variable to localhost, so saying Cassandra should be on localhost on IPv6, and we bind on snerd6, so this is the IPv6 address of the machine. Use Cassandra as backend, and then we pass just in some properties and also a socket binding offset of 10K because the other hawkular server is already on 8080 and we don't want to clash. So let's start that. That also takes a minute, but it's no big deal. You already see here Undertow HTTP listener is listening on the IPv6 address of the server of the machine on port 18080. Here we see Cassandra host on localhost. So on IPv6 localhost is found as well. So it's deploying the application, creating tables in Cassandra. And you may have seen flyby hawkular metrics, not metrics, that's good. And the agent is already syncing. So Hawk monitor feed ID is already registered. It's okay from the past. And it's talking to snerd6 18080. That's good. So we can go here. Netstat -an grep. And you see all these connections on port 18080 all go over TCP6. So we're ready for this. And now while this is running, see also activity on Cassandra. This is running, the agent is syncing its inventory. So that's all good. We can go to OpenShift again. And now OpenShift is up. So not OpenShift, but hawkular services on OpenShift is up. And I can just go over here. Welcome to hawkular. So you see hawkular services on hawkular is up. And the individual components are all started. I can now go, let's say, to hawkular metrics status and get the status page of hawkular metrics. That's good. And now this has an internal agent. And well, actually, let me just go to hawkfx for a moment, quit this session, and now I now take this address So this is now on OpenShift, JDO user as you know it. Here I think there was a slash too much. That's a bug in HawkFX that, yes, it is too much as you see down here. I need to fix that. And you see this is now the hawkular services server itself running inside of OpenShift. And let's have a look at the properties. It's 032 final. Node name is hawkular services -1 blah blah. Let's verify it. We go here. Yep, you see this is the pod. The pod ID hawkular services 11 JSXN, and so this is also the node name here and the name. That's good. And I click on it, I can see here my heap used and all these things, just as expected. And now I'll quit this session for a moment. And go to the IPv6 enabled hawkular. And you see also this one is responding as expected. And for the bindings, now the property here you see the bound address. So the address of the server is indeed the IPv6 address as expected. So that's pretty cool. Quit that for a moment. And now this is hawkular services inside an OpenShift, and I could deploy a few agents inside of OpenShift. But what I'm going to do is actually go outside and take an agent that is not in OpenShift and make it talk to OpenShift. And you have seen before I was using the linking that is possible inside a Docker network. But it's also possible to just pass environment variables for server address and server port. So here I'll tell the server is listening on. Actually, this can also be used inside of OpenShift, this mechanism, of course. So this is on the hawkular services, the OpenShift address with that port. And it's just passed via environment variables. Again, as I'm running it from Docker, the in container flag is set and the immutable flag is set here. By the way, the immutable flag is not yet set in the agent that's coming with 032. This is going to be in the next agent version of 033. This still needs to be set, but you see when it's set, or have seen it works correctly. And now I can go back to my OpenShift address here. Log in, and here you see that machine ID 1DA, machine ID 1DA. So that's now on OpenShift. And last but not least, we have made an effort already before 30, I think it's in agent server hawkular services version 030 that the agent also supports EAP6. So let's try that. The first thing that I need is I need to retrieve the agent. And this is just taking the one from localhost. Doesn't really matter which address. I could also take the one from OpenShift. Let me actually do that. Here you have the Whitefly agent installer. Copy link. As this is a protected page, we need to provide username and password. So I have the installer now here, and I also need an EAP, of course, to install it in. So I have a EAP 640 that I unzip. It's taking a moment. Okay, and now I can run the installer. Actually, here I'll run it down there. So username and password for the agent are passed. The server URL that is supposed to talk to, that's my instance on OpenShift. I'm explicitly setting the feed ID to the name of EAP64. I'm enabling it, and now I also need to tell it where to install it, and this is just inside of JBoss EAP64. I'll do that. And now the installer, when you look at it, downloading agent module from hawkular services, so from my other machine, and then it's telling explicitly that this is an EAP6, so it will download a special agent version for EAP6. It's writing the new server config. That's all cool. And now I can start the agent. I've made a typo here, obviously. So I'm putting in a socket binding port offset of 20K so that it just doesn't clash with my other installations. Of course, I should go into the server directory. Let's start that. And you see it's talking to hawkular at that URL. Feed ID EAP6 has been registered. And here we don't have a machine ID set. So my machine doesn't have that, and I haven't passed it via the -d yada yada flag. There are, well, two other things that still need to be solved, but it should be visible now. So let me go back to hawkfx, do a reload feeds, and now you see the EAP64 here. Operating system, properties. We have no machine ID as expected from the command. And the Wildfly server itself, heap used. The Wildfly agent resource doesn't have any properties because they are not set. And then let's look on the server itself. It's version 640 GA as expected. Okay, and now last but not least, I've mentioned ManageIQ a few times as one of the clients of hawkular services. So let's go over to there and to the middleware tab, providers. And now let's just add a new provider. Let's start with the OpenShift one. Type is hawkular. Host name. We take this host name. Port is 80. Username jdo. And password of password. I validate that. Yep, looks good. Can add that. Not now. Let's add another one. That snrt6 is also hawkular. And here I take snrt6. Actually, let me be more explicit. We had that. Where did we have that? Let's take the explicit IPv6 address so that it's more obvious what we're doing here. This one, I think, was on 18080 with that. Again, JDO password. Yep, validation was good. So we add this as well. And then, last but not least, just the normal one between quotes that's locally running on Docker. Again, hawkular. Okay. Now when you go this one, you should see it may take now a little while. I know it already has synced, so hostname is indeed the IPv6 address, and we already see we have one server below it, 11 deployments. I think it should show more than one actually, but may have to do with the sync or with the IPv6. No, it's not with IPv6, but it's really like the the sync that's happening. So let's go back to the list of providers. No, it's not here. It's go back to the OpenShift one. I think that's more interesting. That one is indeed only one server. That's correct for the IPv6. The OpenShift one should have more. That's more interesting, I think. And this indeed has 3 servers. You see it's on the OpenShift one. Let's go to the servers. And here you see it's the hawkular services server with its pod name, then the external Wildfly in Docker that I've just started, and then the EAP6 one. Let's go to this. And you see version 640 is correctly detected, so that's awesome. And that actually concludes my little video. Thanks for watching, and if you have questions, join us on the Hawkular mailing list on hawkular.org, on IRC, on #hawkular, and yep. Thank you.